Greetings, mighty companions, and welcome back to Transforming Relationships Through A Course in Miracles with the Quinns.
And
Holy
that's
Spirit
Holy Spirit.
in the house.
You know that
At
where
your
the
service.
Quinns are, Holy Spirit is.
That's right.
At least Anna and Greg.
Yeah.
Not because we're special and Holy Spirit's like, I want to be with Anna and Greg because they're the anointed.
No, it's not like that.
That's not it. It's because we just invite Holy Spirit into our relationships. And because we do,
our relationships are getting happier and happier every day.
all the time.
Yeah. And total witness, we just came back from spending a week with my family in Atlanta, and it was all good.
It was so fun. It was
so good.
one of my favorite trips of being with her father, being with her father's wife, which was just the best word I can say is cute and adorable.
Delightful.
They were cute and adorable.
Yes,
people.
they were. Absolutely. And my brother and my aunt
and
our friends, my friends from high school, Kim and Ashley. Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Kim and Ashley. Thanks for showing us such a good time.
And I'll tell you what, it was from beginning to end as if Creator, loving God just took us by the hand and said, hey,
let me show you a good time.
Come with me. And I was telling Anna before class that, you go on trips and it has to be because you're going to see this great sight or this wonder or get to do something, fun as far as an excursion or something. But just to be on a trip and to just feel the calm and joy of
being with family
and laughing. It was so wonderful to sit around with what is family and laugh.
Yeah,
and that,
amen to that.
What Creator wouldn't want that for its own children?
Exactly.
And to just sit around a big long table like we did with your family this week and just laugh and giggle and
and acknowledge each other.
Right.
We were doing a lot of acknowledging each other.
There was a lot of lifting up.
To me, that's one of the profound proofs that A Course in Miracles means what it says.
Right.
That it delivers.
Exactly.
Because like we got into the bus from the airport to get our car, and the guy goes, "Oh, family, man, that's the hardest of all."
Yeah.
That's the hardest of all is family. Actually, it was two guys. It was the guy who gave us a ride to the airport from the rental place, and they both said, "Oh, family, man, that's the hardest."
Yeah.
And so the fact that we experienced that is proof. It's like the ultimate proof that A Course in Miracles is A Course in Miracles, where you can spend time with family. And it's all loving, it's all good, it's all happy. There's your proof.
And
one of them.
The end of the trip was symbolic of the trip. At the end of the trip, we returned the rental car, drive it right to the airport, to where you got to go. Thanks to technology, maps leading us gently along the way, telling us what lane to get into. Stay in the second to the right. I'm listening to this personal guide like we often do in a foreign city.
Yes.
And we park our car. We don't have to talk to nobody. Just leave the keys. We walk up and this guy comes up. Hey, as a courtesy, our car rental agency gives complimentary rides to the doors where you go in, and then you don't have to take the escalators,
go on the SkyTram,
and go down more escalators.
Pull your suitcases.
And he puts us in the car, drives us right up to the
playing
doors.
Rick James funk.
Yeah.
When we get in the car.
Right. And then,
great.
We had the most wonderful conversation with him. And we're the only ones in this passenger van that he's with, and we're just all laughing and sharing with each other. Like in 3 minutes, a joining in truth.
Yes.
Him recognizing us and us recognizing him. That's how the world works.
That's right.
Give what you
That's right.
receive.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Give what you want to receive.
And then right when we got off the plane, our luggage is coming around
as we walk up to the carousel,
right in front of us.
Yeah.
We walked up, we pull it off, we walk out the doors, cross 3 islands of deals at the deal, and we see our bus to our parking lot for our car.
Just drive up.
Just literally drive up. This thing usually carries 10 people on it.
At least.
And we're the only 2 on it. He goes to the other side and goes, well, it's just you and me, people. Another private ride, right to our and right to our car.
Another private ride, right to our car. Yep.
Takes our bags all the way around the van for us and puts them behind our car.
Yeah.
Exactly. Was like the whole week. That's how it was. I'm just giving you a taste of the end of the trip, how Spirit just carried you through the week. And we're going to hear tonight how that happened.
Exactly.
It's not by accident.
And like I was going to say at the beginning, where this is part 3 of the characteristics of love's messengers, part 3. So we did what are the characteristics of the teachers of God, and then we did trust, and then we did honesty. So this is number 3. I thought it was number 2, but it's number 3. And at the beginning of this section that we're in is teacher's manual. Oh, and I need to turn the Facebook on.
Thanks for remembering.
Yes. See.
Where's our messages?
We don't have any yet.
Probably already said.
So, nope, not yet. We're actually beating Mary to it. I love it. Okay.
Let's see, Mary.
So, if you guys are just joining us on Facebook, we just spent about 10 minutes talking about our trip to Atlanta that we literally just got back home from, literally just a few minutes ago. So we were talking about how our trip to Atlanta, where my family is, and the joy and the love that we have, was just another demonstration of the Course in Miracles does what it says. And so that's what we're talking about, that's one of our greatest demonstrations that this is a Course in Miracles, where you can have nothing but love with your family, your family, right? Where we tend to have some of the oldest, heaviest grievances. These ideas enable you to transform all of your relationships, no matter what has happened in the past in your relationships, including your family relationships. And these ideas enable you to allow Spirit to transform all your relationships, even your family relationships, into just miracles of love and joy and support and laughter. And at the beginning of this section, what are the characteristics of the teachers of God? What are the characteristics of love's messengers? It does say that special gifts are given to God's teachers. It does say that love's messengers, anybody who has decided they want to be a messenger of love instead of fear, they receive special gifts. In other words, it seems like they are blessed more than others. They're not. But it is a fact that when you say, I want to be a messenger of love, I want to be a teacher of love instead of a teacher of fear, that the universe supports you. The universe supports that purpose, because that's the purpose of the universe. The universe purpose is loving. The universe purpose is to give love, to be a messenger of love. That's the universe's purpose. So when you join your purpose to the universal purpose of love, well, then the universe supports you. It looks like you're lucky, but it's not luck at all.
Right.
It's not luck at all. It's the universe supporting your purpose, because you've now aligned your purpose, your mission in life, with the universal purpose,
with Creator's purpose.
And so, like the Course in Miracles says that when you decide to take your part among the healers of the world, that the trees offer their shade for you when you're hot, and the trees offer you their leaves to walk on, and the flowers offer you their beautiful scent for you to enjoy, and the waves bow down before you. And the course tells us that the universe honors you, like the sun, the trees, the snow, the flowers, all the creatures, the creation.
When we're in Atlanta and we're with one of the family members, we parked right under a tree where there was this perfect shade for a car to stay cool. And high 80s temperatures, and right by the walking path.
Yes, exactly.
Like this prepared shade on here. Let's keep your car in the shade right there.
That's right. Exactly.
Go on down. And then as we went into the path, all these children, just the energy of children running by. And we don't know if they had just gotten off the bus and come through the woods.
They had just gotten out of the school, which was on the other side of that particular.
But all these children, and then right after that, I'm just demonstrating what the continuance of this trip was. The spirit was just always there. As you said, the trees bowed down to give you covering. And then the deer showed up. They didn't run off.
No.
They were here from 12 yards away, two of them, young ones, and they were just eating off the trees. And then as we walked by, they were on the path, and they just came down a little bit to the lower part of the trees.
That's right.
They didn't run off like freaked out.
Exactly. They literally saw that we were safe.
Yeah. So nature was just constantly honoring and supporting us as we were with it.
Exactly. And so
appreciating it.
And so that was like a big theme during our trip to Atlanta. I remember talking to Debbie and saying the teachers of God, which means the messengers of love, are given special gifts. And not gifts that are not offered to everybody else. All of God's gifts are offered and given to everybody alike. But when you decide that you want to be a messenger of love in the world, then now the universe supports you where it seems like you're given special gifts. It seems like you're luckier, but it's not luck at all. It's just when you align your purpose to the universal purpose of love, now you're in the flow. Now you're in the flow.
Right.
Now you're in the flow.
Now you're not in friction against
the universe,
the universal laws,
universal purpose,
as who love established them, as love was established. It felt so loving the whole trip because everything just flowed nicely.
When you are loving, you naturally move in the flow of the abundance of the universe. That's a fact. That's a fact. When you're not loving, then you put yourself at odds. It's like you're trying to swim upstream now because you're going against the flow of the universe. The universe is a loving, abundant place that where everybody is loved and everybody is provided for. That is the nature of the universe, as A Course in Miracles teaches us about the universe, about reality.
Right.
And so the section that we're doing, where it's talking about the characteristics of the teachers of God, the characteristics that the messengers of love develop. Not that you already have, but that you are developing. And the Course in Miracles is helping us to develop the characteristics of the job, title, function that we have accepted. So we accepted the function of being a messenger of love, a teacher of God, and now we're learning how to do that, how to be that. Well, what does that mean to be a teacher of love, a messenger of love? And the characteristics of God's teachers, the section in the teacher's manual, is teaching us the characteristics that we are developing. It's teaching us, it's like these are it's like, here's your job description, and here's what you will be growing into. Here's what you are becoming. Here's the characteristics you are developing as a teacher of love. You know, and the first one we did was trust. The next one was honesty.
Right.
And so now we're on number 3. There's 10 of them.
All right. So trust. We heard everything is built upon the foundation of everything.
Our ability to fulfill our function as teachers.
Trust,
love.
You know, you might as well just stop there.
You can't do it. Yeah.
It's almost like stepping stones. And if you don't get the first one, you got to keep going back to go. You got to keep going back to trust. Without trust, we can't do any of this. Because our ego is going to try to get us to trust in something else.
Like our weakness.
Yeah.
Or our fear.
Right.
Exactly.
The trust and the fear.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Okay. So, all right. Hey, Mary, we were just talking about you. Mary said, I had a trip. I had a trip like that with my family and friends when I went to upstate New York a few weeks ago. I was concerned about it before I went, but HS Spirit worked it out perfectly. So you know exactly what we're talking about, Mary. You know exactly what we're talking about. She says, I left the house. When I came back, he acted fine, like nothing happened. Oh, wait, let's see. Yes. She says, OMG, I'm reading a book called Forest Bathing. And here you guys are talking about nature. Yes. Yeah. We're all about forest bathing.
That's what
I'm all about that.
We live in, thankfully, the spirit.
In a forest.
We live in forest.
Yes. And we've been creating meditation gardens in the forest.
Yeah.
For that exact purpose, for forest bathing, for us and for our friends who want to come receive healing in our forest.
Exactly.
So if you're in the Colorado area and you know you need some forest healing,
what we call
some nature healing.
What we call, because so many people find the term relatable, spirit retreat, like a retreat, spiritual retreat.
Yeah.
And that's what Anna and I have always envisioned when we were first together in our relationship. Spirit would show us both and then give us confirmation. This is what you're going to be looking for, and you'll know it when you see it. And that'll be a place where people can come for 2 or 3 days and disconnect from the world to the degree they want to disconnect. We do have Wi-Fi.
Be healed by nature.
But be healed by nature. In other words, let go long enough that you can hear
the voice of healing.
Divine's voice speaking through the divine.
Yes.
You're the divine, but only when you're connected to the divine. Right. Which is our source, our creator, and our maker. And sometimes, that's why the answers on the spiritual retreat come to people, because now they're getting connected with the one that cares for you, the one that made you, and the one that wants to see your function fulfilled, which is to be happy.
And it's just been waiting for you to be quiet enough and open enough for it to give you the healing, the joy that is already is given you, and then that's all it wants for you. And so, we're all about creating an environment where people just being in that environment, they naturally are healed, by their own higher self, right? And nature makes it so easy to connect with your higher self.
Makes the healer's job easy when all they do is provide a space.
Exactly.
For you to disconnect long enough to hear your creator speaking to you.
So,
and then the answers that not even a lot of times that you thought you were looking for, because they're not your answers, they're creator's answers, they're love's answer, there's knowledge answers to where we need to be going, what we need to be doing.
So that we can have peace.
Yeah, so that you can have your peace restored, your joy, or to increase your peace and joy.
Exactly. That's
whatever the case might be.
So, our students out there who study course with us, you guys, if you're in the Colorado area, or you want to come to the Colorado area, just know that we have a Course in Miracles healing place here, that is very healing. And during the summertime, it's easily accessible. Summertime, fall. So anyway, now we're going to talk about the characteristics of love's messengers.
Yeah, the teachers of God.
Teachers of God means you're a love messenger. Because remember, what is God? God is love. That's it. God is unconditional love. That's what God is. God is unconditional love. That is the author of reality, and who has created a reality that is only loving, that is only abundant, that is eternal. So that's what God is. Just in case you're new to the Course and you're just joining us, it's not the God that we learned about. It's the opposite. It's the God who is only unconditional love, right? And who has created its creations, only in love, only worthy of love forever. So that's what God is.
It's not the teacher of God that comes to say the wrath of God is coming.
Right, no. Right,
God's coming, and you know what that means.
Right, exactly. Get ready.
Yeah, get ready.
You're in trouble.
Judgment City.
You're in trouble. Judgment City.
And the messengers of God, they don't disagree. They're like, judgment is here, but it was established a long time ago. And that judgment is good.
Only loving.
So everybody take a deep breath.
Only loving. God's judgment.
Feels good. God's judgment is
only loving.
It's only loving.
God, according to the Course in Miracles, the God of the Course, let's say, does not will that anybody suffer for a wrong decision. Nobody. God knows that all of God's creations deserve is love. Even if they've made a mistake. Yeah. So
that's really an awesome parent. An awesome parent isn't, which would be loving to the child, wouldn't want to punish the child for an error, but would want to correct them.
To want to teach them.
And say, okay, so how did that work out for
you?
When you bumped yourself into the wall like
exactly.
Do you think you want to do that again? Bump your head into the wall again like that? No, that hurt. Okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, since you want to be a child of God, a teacher of God, in other words, return back to the way it always has been, then you return back to your natural characteristics of how it's always been.
Exactly. Like I always told Aria, our daughter, it's all right. Mistakes are for correction.
Right.
Mistakes are for learning.
Right.
That's all. Mistakes are for learning. But what are you learning? What are you learning here?
I'll tell you what. I'm a witness because I didn't know these principles when I was raising children. I thought mistakes were for punishment.
Right.
So when my children made mistakes, my instinct was, this is going to hurt you more than
it's going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt them.
Oh, yeah, that's right? Because you're the one getting the spanking or whatever, right? And when I came into our relationship, Arya was like 14. And so I got to watch that, and such a contrast to the way the world teaches is an error equals punishment. You make an error, we start a war with you, and we come and do some bad stuff. Error, punishment, rather than a loving overseer or parent, or guardian of the other. I'm my brother's keeper. An overseer would go, okay, he made an error. If that was my brother, I wouldn't be like, okay, how can we punish him? If one of my brothers made an error, I'm always going to go, whatever. I'm not going to want them to punish them. And that's how somebody in a loving relationship would be with somebody else. The one that's not in a loving relationship would be, okay, you made an error, so how can you hurt?
Yes, how can I punish you so that you'll learn?
So you'll learn. In other words, take your piece away.
Right, exactly.
So that you'll learn about what you did.
Right. And then the Course in Miracles tells us that you don't learn through punishment.
Right.
The reason you made that error was because of punishment.
Right.
guilt that you had received when you made an error before. And so, the only way to truly learn is to release from guilt, because it was guilt that made that person make that mistake. Right.
Well, and as a wise teacher, what we're going to hear as we read here is, why you're doing what you're doing with your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
not because you're this, kind person naturally, but you've learned.
I've learned.
As I give to my daughter, when I make an error, how would I want to be treated?
Exactly. Exactly.
So you have a lot of wisdom that comes with how you're interacting with that person. Exactly. And teenagers are the perfect teacher for us learning to do that.
Totally. The Course in Miracles taught me that it's a feeling of guilt that makes you do stupid stuff, aka unconsciously request punishment from the universe. And so I knew above all else I wanted Aria to feel safe. Right. And so I had learned from A Course in Miracles that means don't give her guilt when she makes an error. Right. Give her truth. Teach her truth. Don't give her don't attack her with guilt, because it's guilt that's making her makes dumb choices and unconsciously request punishment from the universe. So I learned from the Course, if I want my daughter to be safe, I have to make sure she doesn't feel guilty, so that she doesn't unconsciously request punishment from the universe or do something stupid because she feels guilty. Right. Guilt is an unconscious request for punishment, and I didn't want her to make that request. And so whatever mistakes she made, I just reminded her mistakes are for learning. Mistakes are for correction. Let's learn. So thanks for that acknowledgement. All righty. So here we are on number 3. Tolerance.
And it's
and I think I want to put here what it is. Tolerance.
So teacher's manual number 4, and then in number 4 were the characteristics, number 3, tolerance.
Yes. Okay. And then we're just going to start with that and just keep on going as long as we have with you.
All right.
Okay, then.
Thanks for joining, guys. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, totally. Okay, here we go. Tolerance. Love's messengers do not judge.
Period.
Period. Why? Because to judge is to be dishonest. You know why judging is dishonest? Judging is dishonest because to judge is to assume a position you don't have. To judge is to assume a position you don't have.
Yeah. It's not mine and your, the created position to judge the created.
Exactly.
We're created like the rest of created.
Exactly.
So not my job. It would be creator's job because creator created it.
Only creator is in a position.
So a teacher of God sits back and goes, well, it's not my job.
That's not my job. That's above my pay grade.
And then creator comes along and says, thanks for being tolerant.
Thank you.
Thanks for being tolerant.
Thanks for not trying to do my job.
Yeah. And guess what? My judgment is good on this situation. Many times we're shocked, like, well, that's not what I would have went with.
Right.
I'm glad I waited.
Glad I asked.
I was going for a different one.
I was about to judge them as if I was in a position to do so.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
I remember that I'm not in a position to judge.
So I'm glad.
The wrong judgment.
And if I had made the decision that I was in a position to judge them, I would have regretted it. Right. And so would they. No good would have come from that.
Right.
Okay. And the opposite of belief, assuming you're in a position to judge somebody that you didn't create, the opposite of that is tolerance. So here's your 2 reactions. You can either, God's teachers don't judge.
Right.
God's teachers are tolerant.
Right.
Okay.
Because they know what judgment does.
And they know they're in no position to judge.
Right.
Truly. And unless you recognize you're in no position to judge, you're being dishonest with yourself and them.
Right.
Because you're not in a position to judge anyone.
Right.
You know.
Not our pay. What do they call it?
So it's not our it's not our pay grade.
Pay grade.
You know, judgment of beings that we didn't create. That's above our pay grade. That's not. Yes. You know, and so
it'd be like walking into a board meeting and kicking the boss out of the way.
Exactly.
All right, this is what I think we should do this week.
This is what I think.
More trash bags. You know, the trash cans don't have a trash bag on the shipping dock.
Okay.
and the boss was like, you don't even know what's going on.
You're in no position to judge what should be happening, son.
You just
got demoted.
What are you doing?
You just got demoted.
Everybody in the room would be like, looking at each other like, did you see that? Greg just jumped on the throne and said, I'm the judge now.
He assumed.
Everybody quiet now. Listen up. I'm not going to have long up here.
Here comes that's for sure. Here comes the judge. Some people, when I see him coming, I think, here comes the judge.
Yeah.
Okay, now, when you are assuming that you are in a position to judge somebody else that you didn't create, by the way, you are being dishonest and you are being not tolerant. You are being intolerant. That's what's going on.
And let's remember last class, it's saying you're being dishonest if you judge, not just because you're not the judge sitting on the throne,
right.
But you're being dishonest because what is honesty? Remember, a lot of these words aren't the words as the world taught us. What is honesty is consistency. The teacher of God is honest because they're consistent. They consistently don't judge. And so to judge is now to be dishonest because sometimes we judge and then sometimes we don't. Sometimes we judge, I can see they're innocent.
Sometimes we're tolerant.
Go. And we're inconsistent, so we're dishonest.
That's right.
The honest teacher of God characteristic is they're consistent. They're always not judging.
And remember, this is what we're developing.
And this is what we're developing.
This is what we're becoming.
But this is our goal, right?
This is our goal.
This is our goal.
Right.
Let's have goals. And
this is our goal. And how do you accomplish a goal? You set a goal. And our goal is to become a teacher of God, a messenger of love, who it doesn't judge, but is tolerant.
Yep.
You know, because we realize we're in no position to judge because we didn't create that person.
Right.
We didn't even create ourselves. We're in no position to judge who we are, who they are.
Then we start relearning what arrogant is.
Yeah, judgment is arrogance.
Right.
Judgment is arrogant. Arrogant is assuming a position you don't have.
As if I'm the creator of all.
Exactly.
And all that's happening.
Exactly.
As the creation stands up and go, wait a minute. Quiet on the set.
Exactly.
I'd like to take over as the creator here.
And if somebody is judging you, if you are feeling judged by somebody, then you don't need to take that personal.
Right.
You just need to realize that they didn't create you. Right. They're in no position to judge you.
Right.
And so you don't need to take you don't need to take their judgment personal. You don't need to take their judgment serious and be like, they're judging me.
And
so what? They didn't create you. They don't know who you are.
And don't fall for the bait.
Yes.
The temptation to judge them back.
That's right. Amen to that.
Because now it's the blind leading the blind. And you're both gonna fall in a ditch.
That's right.
Just recognize what they're doing and just be like, I know what they're doing, and they're not aware of what they're doing to themselves.
That's right.
And I don't want to join that.
And I'm in no position to judge them because I'm still doing the same stuff.
And once Anna and I have learned that so So you feel the judgment energy, and once that comes in, you, as a teacher of God, realize I'm tolerant. I'm in no position to judge.
I do the same thing
And
still
the next
sometimes.
sentence about judgment without self-deception is impossible.
That's right.
And so I know if I judge, just because they're judging me doesn't mean, and they're being deceived right now. Why would I want to be deceived? And it's saying without self-deception, you know, it's impossible once we've entered into judgment to I know what's going on. I know what's happening. I know what they're doing. I know what this means, and start giving everything the meaning it has. Then I've entered into deception, but the teacher of God doesn't.
Right. Is learning to not do that.
Learning to
not do that.
Do it because they don't want to be deceived.
Exactly. Anymore. Don't forget, this is what we're learning.
Right.
And I love that. Judgment without self-deception is impossible.
Right. So we realize once we start getting tempted to judge, I'm entering into being not only deceived, but self-deceived. Because now I'm deceiving me. It's not some devil or demon or whatever coming to deceive me. It's self-deception. I'm deceiving myself to be so arrogant and proud and boastful to believe that I'm in a position to judge.
Yes.
The created.
Yes.
And when you let go of that, as we learn to let go,
as we're learning to do that,
as we learn to let go of that, I'll tell you what, it's what you said at the beginning of class. The universe, now that you start gaining alignment with what God wants and established, is that type of relationship with everything is a letting go, because you're not in that position. Judgment. It's a burden.
Hey, judgment is a burden.
You got to analyze. You got to critique.
You got to make something up.
You got to put the puzzle pieces together. You got
to make
it's
something.
It's like doing a Rubik's cube.
And it takes energy and effort.
Yeah.
And you're going to be wrong.
You got to gather in.
And you're only going to hurt yourself.
Get all the evidence in.
That takes a lot of work and energy.
Yeah.
To build a case. It takes a lot of energy.
You're I don't know if I can say family member position, but family member is, and you come from a family of people who build cases.
Lawyers.
Yeah.
I came from a whole family of lawyers. Whole family.
And your brother is as wonderful as a man as he is.
So loving.
He's exhausted. Every time I see him, he's exhausted.
Yeah.
Because he's always having
exactly.
And that's a lot of, that's what I'm saying is energy.
Exactly.
Not physical in a physical way, but energy from
psychological,
from inside of us, spiritual.
Yes.
When you're taking on
the position of judgment,
of judge. Have to be judging here.
The Course says that when you give up judgment, not with sacrifice, but when you give up judgment, it's like you're free from a burden on your back that you had been stumbling beneath.
Your whole life.
Like this, like a bird, and you had been like stumbling underneath. And it describes the release from judgment as all of a sudden that burden on your back that you had been stumbling underneath, heavy burden, all of a sudden that burden is off of your back, and you're like walking as if you have no weight on your back. It's a weight on your back.
Somebody retiring, and they retire and they don't have the responsibility of that job position.
That's exactly right.
I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I gave up judgment.
I'm free of that heavy responsibility.
I'm retired from judgment. That's not my responsibility anymore.
Amen to that.
It's like retirement in
it is.
relief.
It is.
After a while, you realize that then
It's a big burden.
you start feeling sorry for the people who still have to do that job.
Yeah, who think they have
Man,
to do
they
that
still
job.
have to do that work. All that
judgment.
analyzing, critiquing.
Hey,
figuring
judgment is a
out,
burden, and it is
gathering
heavy.
evidence.
And you're wrong. I mean,
And then you come
not
out
only-
with an answer, and you're so certain that the creator of creation that your judgment's right. So certain, and then it gets us all worked up. We lose our peace. We get angry. We get upset.
which means you're wrong in your
and
judgment.
we're self-deceived.
Yes, judgment without self-deception is impossible.
It's impossible.
And you're giving yourself a burden, and you're wrong.
Right.
So it's like,
Bingo.
hey, let's all retire from judgment tonight.
Yeah.
Today, let's all retire from judgment, and let's let the universe take care of us.
Right.
It's like the universe is like, just let us do our job, and then we'll take care of you. Okay.
Right.
So
what's that over there?
Yes.
Oh, that's Judgment Island.
mhm,
Judgment Island. How'd they get over there? Oh, that's all the retirees from Judgment.
exactly.
They retired on an island. They're
Yes.
just out there snorkeling.
Exactly. Now but they just gather the fruit on the trees
Yeah.
or what's growing to eat.
Everything's
It's so easy,
abundant for
so
them.
abundant,
Because
so
they don't have any
easy, so
responsibility.
beautiful.
One day we'll be like them. We'll be able to
Yeah,
let go of everything
exactly.
like them and relax.
I'm telling you, retire from judgment, and the universe will take care of you.
The
Because
universe, that's what you were talking about at the beginning.
exactly.
It's not a fairy tale. It's not some hocus pocus.
That's
It
right.
might work for some people, but not for everybody.
Mhm.
The universe will emphatically
Support you.
support you
Take the burden off
And-
of you.
because you step out of the role of being what you weren't made for. We were not made to be judges.
Nope.
God didn't create creation to have a 10 trillion or billion judges running
Exactly.
around.
Right.
A
Exactly.
bunch of judges. God is the judge and already established judgment before creation was even brought forth.
Yes. God does not need us to judge God's creations.
Right.
God don't need our help in that.
Oh, really, Charlie? She did what?
Mm-hmm.
My creation did what that I made?
Mm-hmm.
What? How did I not do it right?
Judging is like being little tattletales, like,
Right.
God, did you see what terrible thing they did? God, punish them.
Yeah.
And the Course says, God does not will that anybody be punished for their errors, no matter how much you believe they deserve punishment.
Yeah. So all your but what about these people?
They deserve punishment.
All
Come on, God.
state.
God's like, I know punishment doesn't work. I don't punish. And like, well, I'll punish them for you. And God's like, I don't need, no, please don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't believe they deserve punishment. You
that's
do.
not God's plan. That's the ego's plan.
That's not God's plan for their healing and correction. That's
The ego's
your plan.
plan is to punish
Your plan is to punish.
the child of God, which is our plan.
Right.
And we came up, it's like we came up with the chess game against God and think we're going to win.
Exactly.
When God's plan is, no, it's just going to be correction.
Mm-hmm.
And even as far off
Loving
the path
correction.
as we've gotten,
Mhm.
as, these wandering children in the wilderness, as far off as we've gotten,
Mhm.
God's plan is still correction.
Mhm.
It's still not punishment.
It's
like,
still not punishment.
well, you've gone X amount of thousands of years now, kids.
Mhm.
So there's just no hope for you anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you've just gone, why? Because all these characteristics are the teacher of God, because the teacher of God is like the creator.
Yes.
These are the creator's characteristics that creator doesn't judge.
Yeah.
Creator's not sitting down going, all right, give me my journal.
Hey, my
Gabriel.
book
I
of
got
life.
my eye on Greg
My
now.
book of life, where I write in the book of life who
subject-
lives and who dies.
Subject 14,291 quadrillion
Mhm.
souls.
Mhm.
I'm going to analyze him now and judge him.
Mhm.
characteristics-
God's tolerant.
God doesn't have any reason to judge
No.
God's
God
uncreation.
knows what you are. God created
God
you. God
made
knows
you.
what you
God
are.
doesn't have to go, I made you, and now I have to keep an eye on what I made, because I don't
Yes.
know what I made. You could do anything.
Right.
God knows what you were made for.
Mhm.
God's quite confident of God's making.
God created you, knows what you are. God's not like, oh my goodness, what have they done?
Oh my goodness, and I made that? Well, I'm going to have to.
Oh, now I need to judge. Now I need to judge and punish.
Right.
God, real God, the God of the Course, is tolerant.
Yeah.
And we, as teachers of God, are learning how to also be as tolerant as God. God is 100% tolerant to all of God's creations.
Right.
We're the ones who came up with judgment, you know.
And why doesn't God judge us? Because God is not deceived.
God's not deceived in us. God knows who we are.
The ones that judge are deceived.
They are. That's right. God don't know.
God doesn't need to judge. God looks at everything and goes, it's good. It's very good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's very good. And so what would you ever need to judge when you already know? You don't think. You already know everything is very good.
Yes.
So what is there to judge? There's no opposite to that. That's where we got off the wagon is we went, there's got to be an opposite to love. There's got to be an opposite to truth.
Yeah.
A lie must be a true at some point.
Yes.
And that's not how it works.
Yep. Nope.
So judgment without self-deception is impossible.
That's exactly right.
And how about sentence 4?
Okay.
Can I read it?
Yes. Why don't you read it? Because I'm going to yeah.
Sentence 4, judgment implies that you have been deceived in your own brothers. So in our own brothers and sisters, the fact that I judge, I'm always saying in poker, you know, I relate a lot of these ideas of A Course in Miracles to poker, because in poker, you're reminded that's a tell. What's a tell? Something that repetitiously happens.
That indicates.
And you pick up on it. When that happens, that happens. When they bet that much, that's what they got. It's a tell. And so I have a tell on myself. Forget everybody else. The purpose of the Course is to accept the healing
for yourself,
the awakening for myself. And so as I'm out there in my day-to-day practice, and everybody knows when you've entered into judgment, when you're judging somebody.
Yeah, there's certain tells.
Yeah. And so when you've entered into that, the teacher of God's, as we're learning, which is what? Remembering. That's what learning is.
As we're becoming.
Is remembering. And I'm remembering, oh, shoot, even if you catch yourself hours later,
that's
a
fine.
day later.
Better late than never.
Just remember, I did some judgment. And what I did, it's impossible that I wasn't self-deceived.
I was deceived in myself.
And I was deceived in my brother or sister.
That's right. Both.
That's what I'm using to be deceived.
Right. Which means I was wrong.
Yeah.
To say I was deceived in myself and I was deceived in them when I was judging means to say that I thought I knew enough to judge, but I didn't.
Everybody that's ever deceived was wrong.
Exactly.
Nobody that's ever deceived was right.
Exactly.
That's what
deceived means. I was wrong. I thought I was right, but I was really wrong.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you're judging, you think you're right, but you're really wrong. And you're going to experience the effects of being wrong, being deceived in yourself and others. And being deceived means I was assuming a position that I didn't have. Right. You know, whenever I judge, I'm assuming a position I don't have. I don't have a position to judge anyone. I didn't create them, and I'm doing the same things they are.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm really in no position to judge. There's nobody who could do anything from their ego where I could say, I would never do that, or I've never done that. I just can't understand how they could do that. I'm not in a position to judge anybody like that, because there's nobody's mistake that I could say, well, I've never done that, or never thought about that, or, you know, there's nothing, you know, even unto murder, you know, you can't be like, I've never thought of murder, you know. So So if you've been deceived, when you're judging, you've been deceived in others. And when you're deceived in others, well, then how could you not have been deceived in yourself at the same time?
Yeah.
If you're wrong about them, then you're wrong about yourself. Now it says judging others, assuming a position you don't have to judge others, that implies a lack of trust. Okay. You're not trusting in God, what God created. Oh, God knows what God's doing. God created them. God knows what they're doing. God knows what God's doing. Judgment implies a lack of trust in God, and trust in God remains the bedrock of the teachers of love's whole thought system.
That was the first characteristic for where we're told the foundation. Without trust, you have nothing.
Right.
And so once we start entering into judgment of our brother or sister, then
Trust is lost.
We've lost the foundation.
That's
trust.
right. Of our ability to fulfill our function as a messenger or teacher of love.
And wouldn't that trust partly that now we lack be trusting that I'm not the judge?
Yes. And trusting who is the judge. Right.
Even though I can't see that judge, I'm like, do you see what's happening here? And you don't want me to judge this? Are you paying attention, Mr. Invisible God? And again, the universe, heaven, the angels of reality, truth backs itself up. When you step out of the role of judging, because this world, wouldn't we say that this world, it almost seems like, well, if you don't go through your day judging, you're just not being smart.
Oh, that's what we call maturity.
Yeah, because
in this world, it's like ability to judge
keeps us safe.
Yeah, we think it's maturity. We think it's what keeps us safe.
We see someone when we go, that person looks suspicious. And
thinking that keeps us safe.
And I'm afraid of them, or I bet they're a bad person. And now we've stepped into that role
position we can't assume.
Even though it seems like they got
logical.
Going on their face. Look at the way they're walking toward me.
Look at the way they're dressed.
Look at the way they're acting.
Exactly. Right.
Look at what they just said.
Right.
They're scary. And even though they're putting out maybe not what they want back, maybe they are judging. But to recognize
we don't need to judge.
Even at that temptation, because our temptation, well, if they can judge, which is just the created like I am, just the created only, then I can judge too. If they're going to pretend to be a judge, then I can pretend to be a judge.
No.
But to recognize that's still not my role, even though they're
judging and suffering, it's still not our role.
It's still clearly not my role to take the robe and to go up on behind the bench with the mallet and go, what I say will be the truth.
Order in the court.
Because I'm
the judge.
I know
Here comes the judge. Right. I know all things and I'm perfect.
Knowing.
Right. To judge is to say, I created them. I know all things, and my judgment would always be accurate.
Right.
That's assuming a position you don't have when you want to judge. And the opposite of that is to be tolerant.
Right.
Is to realize I'm in no position to judge. I didn't create that person, and I'm still learning and making mistakes myself. I'm still doing that exact same thing they're doing, maybe in a different form. Right. Just because I'm not doing their mistake in the form they're doing it, don't mean I am not doing that, making that mistake in a different form. And so I'm in no position to judge. And so I am tolerant. I am learning to be tolerant as God. As a teacher of God, I'm learning to be like God, tolerant.
Right.
God's tolerant. That's what God is. I'm the one who hasn't been tolerant. All right. So judgment implies a lack of trust, and trust remains the bedrock of our of the teacher of love's whole thought system. If you let trust in God be lost, then all your learning goes. If you stop trusting that God created this person, God created them and knows them, and God knows what's going on, if you lose that trust, then what does it say? Then all your learning goes.
Right.
Everything you ever learned as a teacher of God, it's gone. Yeah, I mean, you don't remember
It's
it at
as
all.
if you've learned nothing.
It's as if you will start acting like you've learned nothing.
Just lose that one thing. Trust that you
Trust in
are
God.
not the judge.
Exactly.
And so you're trusting in the only thing that can judge, which is God.
Exactly.
No matter what the situation is, no matter what the crisis is, no matter how much the world is punching you in the face, you still sit there and don't judge. That's the teacher of teachers.
And how do you do that? You put your trust in God. God created this person, I didn't. God knows this person, I didn't. God knows this person and what's going on with them, and God doesn't need me to judge this person. That's trust in God. And if I'm going to lose that trust when I'm, tempted to judge them, then I'm going to forget everything that I've learned in A Course in Miracles. All right. So then it says, so without judgment are all things equally acceptable. So if I'm not judging, then all things are equally acceptable. Why? Because who could judge otherwise? Without judgment, everybody is equals. Without judgment, everybody is equal. Without judgment, everybody is equal. Without my judgment, everyone is equal. Because without judgment, who is there who stands apart? And so judgment destroys honesty and shatters trust. No messengers of love can judge and hope to learn.
Because all your learning goes out the window.
Exactly.
And so you have to keep going back to go.
That's right. You got to keep going back to the start.
A lot of us say,
back to the start.
I want to wake up and
I want to evolve.
I don't want to do this.
I want to graduate.
School, learning.
Right.
Again, I want to move on from this.
Exactly.
This learning cycle.
Right.
And the way to do it is to give up judgment.
Exactly.
You give up a position that was never used.
Exactly. Because every time you judge, then you can't learn, which means you can't evolve, which means you're not going to graduate from Earth School and go on to what's next. You can't judge and hope to learn, which means evolve,
Yeah. The first thing in the Garden of Eden that when the created went into a sleep, when the created forgot who they were, is when God showed up in their consciousness saying, why were you hiding from me, Anna and Greg? And I'll tell you why we were hiding.
Because we're judging.
It wasn't because we thought we were naked. It was because we were judging.
Your creations,
we
God.
took a position for the first time ever in the garden.
We assumed a position.
We assumed a position that we were not created for.
Exactly.
We were not made to be judges.
Exactly. We assumed we were God.
We were assumed a role.
Yes.
We exalted ourselves above the stars of heaven.
Yeah.
The role of the created, and sat literally on the throne of God. And what was God's response to us? Who told you to judge? Who told you were naked? Who made that judgment that you should be ashamed? Who made that decree? Who sat on my throne? Who took my position? And it's not God being angry. Okay, now the wrath of God.
No.
No, God says, well, we have to get this.
We need some learning.
We have to get this error.
We need some corrected.
Lovingly. And the way to do it is to let you do the test over and over.
As many times as you want.
And as many times
you want.
over different characters, different situations.
Yeah.
of where we sit on the throne and say, I am the judge. I'm the one that has all knowledge.
I'm God. I know enough to judge.
I know good from evil.
Exactly.
Right from wrong.
That's right.
Up from down. Just ask me. I'll tell you.
Right.
And that is such a temptation. And in the world as we've known it, teaches us it's not safe not to judge.
Right.
Because why? We've never really given it a chance, a real chance to see what it would be like if we gave up just that thing, judgment.
Yeah, right.
And if we gave up that one thing and just compare it after a period of time, 2 or 3 days of just not taking that position.
Not assuming that position.
Not assuming that position. And no matter what comes, no.
Yeah. I'm not going to assume the position.
I wanted to. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah,
but I
wanted to assume that position.
Judgment fast. You know what fast is? I'm just giving it up for a while. Detox.
Amen to that, man.
And then after 2 or 3 days, I'll tell you what, when you're being chauffeured like angels carrying through your day.
Through life.
I'm serious. And serious.
Real.
We're not making this up.
Carried.
It feels like angels are carrying you. You can notice the presence of leaving the airport.
Yeah.
All the lights were green, and sure, we got into some traffic. It was rush hour.
Right. And still,
we only had a few spots where it slowed down. And what do? We're just
we're in course.
Reading course.
You know, the Course in Miracles says when you have learned to make all decisions with spirit, you know, which is not assuming the position you don't have, right? When you have learned to make all decisions with spirit, then you will experience life as if you are being carried down a quiet path in summer.
Yeah. When you're not
all
assuming a role that's not your role to assume.
Then all obstacles will be removed before you meet them. All obstacles will be removed and you will feel like you're being carried down a quiet path in summer. That is how life will feel to you when you are not assuming a position you don't have and you are judging. When you are not judging, when you are exercising or expressing tolerance.
God didn't create us to give us a burden.
Exactly. Judgment is a burden.
I made you because I love you. I'm going to put this burden on you to always be analyzing, critiquing, controlling, lurking about, finding fault.
Looking for fault.
As if that's what kind of energy I want you to be around.
That's what judging is. Looking for fault.
No, I didn't make you for that.
I didn't make you to carry that burden of finding fault and judging.
Not my kid.
Yeah, no.
I want my kid to be calm. Enjoying
I want my kid to be carried down a quiet path in summer.
Laughing.
All obstacles removed before my child.
And if there be any burden that need be like that, then I, the parent, want to take it on.
Exactly.
You know, I don't want my child to be under that heavy load. How am I going to figure this out?
Exactly.
How am I going to do this? How am I going to make that person be the way that they should be?
Right. So love's teachers are tolerant. Tolerant. And so we've just covered the third characteristic that we develop as teachers of love, as messengers of love.
And just before we read gentleness, it brings in a lot of different aspects of the Course in Miracles, like the one that we hear all the time, probably the most common, I am as God created me. And now we hear a deeper meaning of that, which is not a judge.
Right.
I am as God created me.
Right.
We think innocent. Well, the innocent are those who don't judge.
That's right.
We're like, I'm innocent. What does that mean? I'm innocent. I'm innocent because I don't judge.
Yeah, that's what it means. It doesn't mean I've never done anything that I regret.
I don't make errors.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I'll make errors.
I forgot. I'm not the judge, and I sat on the judgment seat, and I put Daddy's robe on, and I put on all of the.
Got my gavel.
picked up
Order in the
Daddy's
court.
gavel and went, okay, everybody,
Order in the court.
hurry up before Dad comes back.
Exactly.
Everybody take me serious.
Exactly.
I'm the new daddy in the
Uh-huh. Who knows nothing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
who doesn't know the laws, right?
Only an ignorant child would be like, I'm the daddy now.
Yeah.
I'm God.
Yeah.
I'm the daddy. Listen to me.
Bring forth my brother Jimmy there. I got a case already before this even happened.
Mhm. Exactly. Let's hurry up before God, daddy comes in.
I got all this evidence over here,
Mhm.
and I haven't allowed any of this evidence, which is daddy's evidence.
Exactly.
Come on, everybody. Take me.
Order in the court. Come on, everybody. Take me seriously.
And explains why things like when we see children playing with sharp scissors running through the room, when we take away, and taking the sharp scissors away is assuming the role of judge.
Right. The scissors is us assuming the role of judge.
Right.
A position we don't have.
A position we don't have.
Right. All right. So now we're going on to number 4 in the characteristics of love's messengers, and that is gentleness. Mm-hmm. Gentleness.
And only because I know it's so loud.
All right. That was a perfect demonstration of gentleness right there.
That was a gentle kiss.
Yes, it was. All right. So the 4th characteristic that we are learning to develop as messengers of love, is gentleness. And what it says about gentleness is harm is impossible for God's teachers. Mm-hmm. So
that's a good one.
Okay, it's a good start. Right. So harm is impossible for love's messengers. Mm-hmm. They don't go together. You don't be a messenger of love and be doing harm. All right.
Or receiving harm.
Right. Now, love's messengers, the teachers of God, they can neither harm nor be harmed.
Right.
Why? Because harm is the outcome of judgment.
Right.
And if the teachers of God, the messengers of love, are learning how to be tolerant and not do judgment, then no harm results.
Right.
Then harm is impossible for them.
Or others.
Right. Exactly.
Because they're not judging.
Of course. Well, the harm is impossible for the teachers of love because they're not judging.
Right. Everything is acceptable, as it says.
Exactly.
So what's there to judge? Everything's acceptable.
Exactly. Harm is the outcome of judgment. That's where harm comes from. Mm-hmm. Harm is the outcome of judgment. Harm is the outcome of you assuming a position you don't have to judge somebody that you didn't even create.
Right.
That's where harm comes from.
And
you're being harmful when you're doing that.
The awakening wise teacher of love, the messengers of God, they realize that the only thing that comes out of judging is harm.
That's right.
And so now you're stepping on dangerous ground, right?
We're talking about harm. Who wants to experience harm?
The other person is the only one getting harmed. That's not what I want. Mm-hmm. That's not what the teacher of love has come to do, is that anybody experience harm.
Exactly.
So the last thing they want to do is to judge, because they know that in itself is what brings harm.
Exactly.
And just because the other person's doing something that would
bring harm
doesn't mean I want to say, yeah, let's do that. Mm-hmm. Let's join in bringing harm. Mm-hmm. I'm a teacher of love.
And
I'm a representative of heaven.
And harm is the outcome of judgment. Harm is the outcome of assuming a position you don't have to judge.
Right.
And it says that harm is the dishonest act that follows a dishonest thought.
Yeah.
Harm is a verdict of guilt upon another, and therefore on yourself. That's what harm is. It's a verdict of guilt. You're guilty. you're guilty. A verdict of guilt on another.
And therefore,
that's harm.
Yourself.
And therefore, it's harm on yourself.
And so when we see the other as guilty, we join in on that judgment. That's what the judgment, now we know what the judgment is. Judgment is a condemnation of guilt.
Yes.
I'm going to give guilt. So
it's
now,
a judgment
now
of
you
guilt.
know you, because we're saying that, well, how do I know if I've entered into judgment? Well, now you know.
Guilt.
Are you given, or is there guilt going on?
Is there any guilt happening in the scene?
Yeah.
Giving or receiving?
Any guilt going on?
Any guilt going on?
Now what the teacher of God's like the guilt police. Any guilt going on? Oh, there is. Oh, I'm in the judgment.
Right, which means I'm giving harm.
I should be putting on a red alert now.
Harm alert.
Yeah.
Harm
because
alert.
I'm perceiving guilt. So I'm really wanting to judge and assume a position. Because when you see guilt is a call for punishment.
Guilt is harm.
Yeah.
Guilt is harm. Guilt is judgment is harm.
Right.
Which is not gentleness.
It's not.
So when what does it say? It says that harm is the outcome of judgment. So when you're judging others, then you're being harmful.
Right.
And the opposite of judgment and harm is gentleness.
Right.
So, that's the opposite of judging and doing and giving harm.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could say God is gentle.
Yes, exactly.
And so
God doesn't do harm. God is gentle.
In the beginning, we heard, let us make into our own image. And making is a process. It's learning. And we're learning that, okay, to be like God, then I don't want to have dishonest thoughts.
Don't want to be judgmental.
Dishonest would be, again, the opposite of honest, which is consistent. But dishonest thoughts are not consistent.
I don't want to be judgmental.
Right. And so the verdict of guilt upon a brother, and therefore now on myself. So now I'm guilty.
Yeah. Which means I'm doing harm.
Right.
Not only to them, but to myself as well. To judge harm is the outcome of judgment. Okay. And harm is the dishonest act that follows a dishonest thought. That's where harm comes from. Okay. So harm is a dishonest act that follows a dishonest thought. Harm is a verdict of guilt upon another and therefore on oneself. Harm, to do harm, that's the end of peace. And that's the denial of learning. As soon as you're doing harm, no more learning, no more peace.
And just like we heard in the last one, you got to go back to go.
Exactly.
You want to wake up in this lifetime? Keep judging, because judgment brings harm.
That's right.
And once we've entered into
harm,
the verdict of guilt upon another,
harm,
that's how I know I'm judging. Then it's back on myself.
And then there's no more peace, and you're not learning
all
anything.
Learning, once again, it's
all
like we keep playing this game of learning. We go 2-step, and then it's not like, well, okay, you made an error, so you lost 40% of your learning. No, all learning is thrown out the window again. And I have to go back to the beginning of I'm not the judge.
I didn't create this person. I'm in no position to judge this person. So I'm not going to judge this person. So I'm going to be tolerant and I'm going to be gentle.
Go back to trust.
Right. Go back to trusting God, that God created this person, not me. God knows who this person is, not me. I do not need to fix this person, judge this person. Go back to being honest.
Which is being consistent. Every time I'm tempted to judge, what do I do with that?
Right.
I go back to trusting I'm not the judge, God is. And God will make the right judgment, because God created all of this. I have to trust in creation.
Exactly.
Not in my judgment.
I'm not God. I was created by God, thank God, but I'm not God.
Right.
And so it's not for me to judge.
Right.
Whom God created. That's for God to do. And I'm going to trust that God created this person, knows them, created them perfect. And I don't have to do, there's nothing I have to do, it's nothing I need to do.
Yeah.
And because as soon as I judge, I'm going to be doing harm. And when I do harm, that is automatically the end of my peace. And that is automatically the denial of learning. Now I'm not learning anything and I don't have peace.
Right.
Okay. Now, harm demonstrates the absence of God's curriculum, and harm demonstrates that the replacement of God's curriculum by insanity. That's what harm demonstrates. That I'm not following God's plan, and God's plan in my mind has been replaced by insanity. That's why I'm doing harm.
Yeah, it's insanity when I think I can judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that plan is taking over God's plan, which is you can't judge.
Exactly. And that's why no teacher of God, no minister of love, but must learn. And they must learn fairly early in their training that harmfulness completely obliterates their function from their awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we as teachers of love must learn and fairly early in our training. We're in teacher of God training.
Right.
Yeah, we're teacher of God training. That's what we're at.
We have a function, and whenever we enter into that judgment, that guilt fantasy land, then we've had all learning thrown out, and it obliterates my function by my awareness. And my function tonight is to demonstrate what it looks like not to judge. I know the world's taught all of us to do that way, but if you do it this way, now that's my function to demonstrate. This is what the child of God looks like. They look like somebody that has no need to judge.
The teacher of God.
And look how things are going for them. Do they look like they need to be afraid of things?
Nope. No. Notice what happens with the teachers of God who are learning to be tolerant, who are learning to be gentle, who are learning that they can't judge. Look at what happens to their lives.
Right.
These teachers of God, their lives become supported by the universe. Oh. They look lucky, but the truth is they're being supported by the universe because they have become teachers of God, God's curriculum,
right.
God's way,
right.
God's truth.
And God's
instead of judging.
Yeah, and God's way works.
Yes.
Even though it looks like a scary, dark hallway to go, well, if I don't judge, that's not very safe. People just walk all over.
They'll take advantage of you.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good at all. Right. I've done well by judging my whole life. And
thinking it kept me safe.
And what Anna and I say to a lot of people all the time is you don't even have to believe us, even though we're telling you this is why we do it, because we know it works. This is why we do it, because we know it works. Sure, we could give you tons of stories. Just in the last week what happened as a demonstration of what we're going to get into later, talking about joy. Joy is in your welcome hands all the time.
That's right.
And we just experienced joy, and we could tell you all of our testimonies and stories and things, and this happened and that happened and then this happened, and oh my goodness. And you can see the presence of heaven with you, of the universe.
That which works.
The support of love, lifting you up and carrying you
supporting
along the way. Supporting you, opening the doors for you, literally, showing you how much you're adored and loved, and you're demonstrating to my creation, you don't have that burden to judge. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Harry.
Like Shahira says, it feels so good to not judge, or sure feels good to not judge.
Thank you for demonstrating what a life looks like of those who have given up a role that I never created you for. I didn't make you to have that burden. I would never have thought to ever do that to you.
Yes.
And so now that you've given it up, you're the light of the world. You're leading the way for others to see things seem like they're working out awful good for them. They're just luck buckets.
Yeah, they're just lucky.
That's what it is.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I love it. Mary asks a very good question. Mary says, what do you do if you want a person to do better in their actions without judging them? Okay. Well, if you their actions will improve when you stop judging them. And to stop judging a person, it's not like I will not judge this person. I'm gonna white knuckle it. To stop judging a person is to say, I'm in no position to judge that person. I haven't accepted the truth for myself perfectly. I'm still making mistakes myself. I'm still making errors myself. I'm in no position to judge this person. And God created this person. I didn't. So I'm not the judge of this person. And, that's what you do with somebody. And that does change their behavior for the better, meaning for the more loving. So when you stop judging them, realizing you can't judge them, you're in no position to judge them, and you remember that you didn't create them, then you're going to be more tolerant with them. You're going to be more gentle with them. And guess what? Their behavior will change for the better.
And you
never even said anything.
And let's remember, this is a self-study, meaning self-accepting curriculum. We don't have to worry about that other person because it's not about them.
That's right.
It really isn't. It's about me. It's about It's about us.
Right.
Our healer, heal thyself.
That's right.
And all I have to do in a situation is not judge them.
Exactly. It's like,
and I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's not going to change nothing. Then they're not even going to know they're doing anything wrong. And the problem is not in what we perceive as doing wrong, in that we're trying to assume a road that's not ours. That's where the upset is really coming from. You think it's from their behavior or whatever. The upset's really coming from we're assuming a position that we don't have.
That's right.
And once we give that up, we don't have to know how, okay, well then how's this going to change so that I'm not upset anymore. We don't have to worry about that. That's where trust comes in.
That's right. That's where trust comes in.
I can trust that just by giving up that deal, that somehow magically this is going to get
God knows what God's doing.
Because it says so in the book.
Right. And God knows what God's doing.
And I have to trust God must do what God's doing. I don't have to judge anything about it. That's what I have to give up. Not keep trying to change something, to judge it or to critique it, to give that up and see what happens then. Trying it that way versus all the other ways we've tried in the past. And there's where we go, wow, that worked.
Oh my God. And I never even said anything.
And we hear in the lessons, the daily lessons, this is a giant stride. When you receive experience, you don't have to live off of Greg and Anna Tanya, and then this happened, and then that happened. It was like floating on a magic carpet. It really was this past week. Totally. From being in nature to where we normally want to be, to just being carried through the whole week, laughing.
With family,
a whole week.
So beautiful.
Different people. And it was a demonstration for us. This is what, not for you to even show people, Greg, but for you guys to experience. This is what happens when you give up judgment.
That's right.
And when you do, this is the effects of it. Is you will now live the life that the created were intended to live.
That's right.
With joy, peace, happiness, love, being carried along, supported, felt supported,
ease and grace,
recognized, supported.
And the things that used to upset you magically shift.
Right.
They don't do those things anymore magically. Like, for instance, Mary says, she was saying that she had some temptation to to give judgment, because she was saying, what do you do if you want a person to do better in their actions without judging them? And then she said, my son is messy and I can't stand mess. I reacted to him and he got very upset. I gave him guilt, which made me feel awful. But what about boundaries? Mm-hmm. Okay. So in that case, Mary, for starters, that's a great question. So in that case, there is a way to not judge your son, and to realize that you're in no position to judge him for his messiness, and I'm in no position to judge him. I have my own messiness. Mm-hmm. I'm in no position to judge. And so what you do, and then you practice what we're learning to practice here: tolerance, patience, all those things. And then what happens is that, that a shift happens, a miracle happens, and you didn't say anything. You didn't judge. You didn't give guilt. So notice how when your son was doing something that you didn't like and you judged and you gave guilt, notice how it made you both feel terrible and nothing shifted. Mm-hmm. Right. And so the Course in Miracles is teaching us that how to not judge in that situation, realize you're in no position to judge them for the thing you're judging them for. And then you put your trust in God. Mm-hmm. Like, God, I know that you've got it all covered. You know my son, you know me, you know what we need, you know what's going on. And I trust you to be able to bring us both peace. Right. And so I'm going to ask for your answer, God, where we both have peace, where we both have peace, because neither of us are in a position to judge the other. Right. And so you put your trust into God, that God has an answer for this situation, which can bring peace to both of you without sacrifice. You invest your trust back in God instead of investing trust in your judgment. And then you get God's answer, God's peace, which is a win-win for both of you. Yeah, and it's a great demonstration, Mary. Thanks for being brave enough to share it with everybody. Mm-hmm. I do it when I can come up with demonstrations as well, because it helps us grow in reality of what we're going through in our daily lives. Mm-hmm. Because like that story is a very common thing that happens. Absolutely. Somebody else is doing something and the evidence seems so compelling. Yeah. That enough to judge them, because if I don't, they're just going to keep doing that, or they obviously are unaware of what they're doing, so I need to tell them. Mm-hmm. And that's a very great example, because the outcome is the demonstration of what we're learning is, okay, the way you've been doing it, the outcome is harmful. Yes. It's harmful for them. Right. It's harmful for you. And now it was harmful for both of your relationships, because nobody likes to be given guilt, and nobody likes to feel like they have to tell somebody what seems like the obvious, but what they're doing wrong. But the mature or the more awakened teacher than the other person, they don't take it to the other person, their grievance. They take it to God. And how do they take it to God? I was hearing this while you were talking, that this old movie called this Karate Guy, Billy Jack, and these people that have all gathered together, they wanted the violence to stop, and they're singing, "Give peace a chance." And I was hearing in my mind as you're talking, give God a chance. Put your trust in God to be the judge. Very Very good.
Give God a chance. We have
Very
learned
nice.
to do that.
Very nice.
We've given
Yes.
ourselves a chance.
Yes. To be the
Ourselves
judge.
a chance. Ourselves a chance. Ourselves a chance to
To be the judge, which
And
produces
has
harm.
it brought the peace, joy, abundance,
Not at
and
all.
happiness?
It did harm.
That it's not working.
That's right.
And we're using our brothers and sisters
Yes.
to do the judging. That system isn't
Yes.
working. The
That's right.
system that does work is just to give up judgment
Exactly. And put your trust in God.
and give God a chance
Right.
to be the judge. And God's going to show up and go, I see everything working out great here, Greg.
Exactly.
And they're like, oh, wow, really?
Mhm.
What?
And then God gives you this answer
Right.
that is a win-win for both of you.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
you didn't have to do
and
nothing.
you didn't have to be like, you need to stop doing that. I have my boundaries. You know, you didn't have to be the judge who gave guilt, who really did harm. You know, you put your trust in God. God, I didn't create this person. You did. You know them, and you know the truth about them, and you know the truth about me. So I'm asking for you to decide for peace for both of us.
Mhm.
And then you receive the result that comes from God's judgment on that situation.
Power.
Exactly.
No matter what all the yes, but
yes, right.
it's the ultimate power.
Yes, exactly.
We've been taught it's the ultimate weakness.
Yes.
But it's the ultimate power to not assume the role that we were not created for.
Exactly.
To be the judge.
And I love it how Shahira says, everyone is expressing some aspect of me. That's right. And then Shahira says, thank you. I'm applying this in my own situation, and it's not my son, LOL. Right. And then it's something else. And then Mary says, thank you so much. And then Demi says, give it to God. Proactively set an initiative for benefits of a clean room. Oh, very nice. Mm-hmm. Give it to God and proactively set an initiative for benefits of a clean room. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or a clean house. Exactly. You know, when I want somebody to do something differently, what I have learned to do from A Course in Miracles is to not judge them and to realize, hey, I'm making my own mess. I'm making my own mistakes here. And
I want my mess corrected, not punished.
As well, you know. And then ask God for God's win-win answer for you both.
Yeah. Okay. And my mess might be in my judgments.
I may have a messy inner life.
Judge this.
That's right.
Now the mess is in my mind.
Exactly.
Not out in the physical world.
Exactly.
In my mind that are going are corrected, not punished, corrected for me. Yes. In other words, I didn't have to do anything for it because I didn't do anything in that situation. And that person didn't have to do anything for their not receiving guilt.
Exactly.
Harm, punishment.
Exactly. And then the whole situation is transformed. Right. And you didn't have to say anything. You didn't have to give guilt. You didn't have to give judgment. You didn't have to say a word. And the next thing you know, the situation you were upset about miraculously changes and you didn't say anything out loud.
And Anna and I, if we wrote a book, would have started years ago, and it would have been something entitled like, and I never would have thought of it that way, because the way it comes back by not judging is, even if you thought you were smart enough to be God and you would do everything the way you would have had it changed and done, the way it ends up being done is a way you would have never thought of.
That's right.
Way better.
Way better. And it was done for you.
And it was done for you.
And then you're like, oh, wow. Wow.
And it really is trying, that's the temptation. Lead us not into temptation, into wanting to be
the judge.
Because you made us so much like you. The temptation is to want to judge too.
Yes, that's right.
To be the judge. We're so much like you.
That's right.
We're able to experience love, peace, joy. We're so much like you. That's so tempting.
Yes.
Lead us not in temptation to be the judge.
Exactly.
Okay, we can enter into the Holy of Holies, but the holiest of holies is to think you are the creator.
Exactly.
The ultimate of knowledge.
Exactly. And if I just don't judge, realizing I'm in no position to judge, then God's plan, which is a win-win for everybody, I can accept.
Yeah.
As long as I'm not being the judge, then now I can accept God's plan for the win-win answer that God does have for everything. Everything.
When we lose trust, and we step into the role of judge. When we lose trust and all learning's gone out the window, then we block God's answer, which is being able to recognize how this all is okay.
And God's answer where everybody, it's a win-win for everybody, you know. They get to be however they are, and you get to have it however you need it to be for peace, you know. So,
and we don't need to have to worry about how that's going to work out that way. Which is where the trust comes in.
Exactly.
And the honesty, which is to be consistent in doing that over and over.
Exactly. Well, beautiful, guys. Well, we're going to stop here, and then we didn't finish it, but there's more paragraphs. There's several more paragraphs, but we'll finish it next week. I think Greg and I were saying that we're just going to go through the characteristics of God's teachers.
It's been fun going through, remembering and really this is what the teachers of God is.
Yes.
The teachers of God are really those that are returning back to their natural state. In our natural state, as people would call it, the Garden of Eden, everything was done for us in a way that we didn't have to judge anything.
That's right.
We weren't, imagine.
Didn't have that burden.
We seem to realize that when you go to heaven, you wouldn't need to judge anything because everything would be good in heaven.
Right.
All the bad people were kicked out. Remember? So everything good, free to go, abundance. And so everything's all right.
Yeah, exactly.
And as it said, everything is acceptable in heaven.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we're waiting for heaven. But God is saying, how about have heaven on earth now? How about be like you are in heaven, which would require no judgment? What's there to judge in heaven?
Nothing.
You're just, everything's acceptable in heaven.
Good.
You don't go, what are you doing over there, Bob? Why are you
doing that?
Pork wrench in your hand?
Exactly.
What are you doing with that thing?
Why you got all that stuff in your yard?
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you know?
Judgment is a burden. That's how the Course in Miracles describes a burden. I mean, how the Course in Miracles describes judgment. It describes it as a burden that you can but stumble beneath, and that when you give up the burden of judgment, it's like, it's the ultimate lightness and joy. And, that's what we're learning how to do as teachers of God, as teachers of love, as messengers of love. We're learning how to be like God. What are the characteristics of the teachers of God? Well, the teachers of God are going to have characteristics like God. Tolerant, gentle, patient, joyful, honest, trusting. And as we develop those characteristics, then we experience more of the joy and abundance and safety and peace that is God's will for us.
Right.
As we align our will with God's will, then we become more like God, more gentle, more patient, more tolerant, more joyful, more trusting, more happy, more abundant, more feeling of safe.
Well, speaking of more joyful, why don't you talk about yours and Carla's
class? Right on. So I want to tell you, I love the name of our workshop that we're doing, the June, and the title is, which I just love, Embracing Abundant Life Through Community.
Embracing abundant life through community.
Right, which really means through joining. Embracing abundant life through community. I love that purpose. And that is the purpose and the title of mine and Dr. Carla's June Course in Miracles workshop at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center. So that's what we're going to be doing. We'll talk about that. Course in Miracles, using A Course in Miracles to experience embracing abundant life through community, through joining, and what's the best way to join with others in community and create a community of abundance and joy and safety is to relinquish judgment. What better way to do that? Greg and I experienced joy and safety and abundance with our family this past week because we were relinquishing judgment. Relinquishing judgment enables us to have this joyous abundance, love with our family, with our community. And so that's what we're going to be doing at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center. And that's June 21st at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center. And now at the moment, it's just in person at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center because we're trying to create community. But if you want to come into Colorado and come to that workshop, then hallelujah, then come join with us as we learn how to embrace abundant life through community, through A Course in Miracles. So, that's June 21st. At the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center. And if you're interested, just, contact me or Carla and come on down.
Come on down.
Come on down. And we're also inviting everybody, if you're coming to Colorado or if you just need a place to heal, some time in nature to heal with A Course in Miracles, we have Miracle Peak. Where that's what we're doing here. We're in nature, 41 acres on a mountaintop. So just know that that's available. And
in the spring and summer, when we say that, it's the time of year we're talking.
Exactly.
Because in the winter, sometimes we don't know if we're going to be.
Exactly. We don't know if we're going to get up here.
So now there's security gates to get in, but we can make arrangements for people to get into the neighborhood. And up a long dirt road. The dirt road, bumpy dirt road.
Oh, it's the best.
It lets you know you're leaving the cares of the world behind.
Right,
that you're disconnecting from even black pavement,
Exactly.
and going into, and you can see on both sides of the road trees and sky. And then and it's been creating the most beautiful meditation garden space out at
in
one
the forest.
Of many rock outcroppings on the property, and where you can just sit there in nature and and
heal
and listen
for the voice of healing.
Let God be the judge of what's going on in your life.
Amen.
And hear what God's judgments are.
That's right.
Because our judgments are, woe is me. God, please do this. God, please do that. And God's like, you want to hear my plan? Which has, by the way, nothing to do with any of what you were just talking about. That was just nothing but a big self-deceptive distraction. And this is what I got for you.
That's right. Exactly. I love it. And Mary says maybe September. I love that. Shahira says win-win. Mary says great awakening class. Shahira says thank you. Mary says great teachers. Shahira says love you all. So we love you all too. So grateful for you all. And what was I going to say? Well,
you're talking about the word.
Oh yeah, I wanted to tell you that soon, very soon, probably by the beginning of June, all of mine and Greg's broadcasts will be from my new Facebook professional page.
Oh, okay.
So go check that out, follow, and then, because that's where we will be broadcasting all of what we're doing on Facebook from my new professional page. And there it is on the bottom.
So
you'll see right there. It says,
and at the end is, do they type in teachers?
They just, exactly. They just go type that in right there. Okay. Anna Rebecca Quinn, teacher, healer, visionary, and go follow that page. And then that way you'll know when we're broadcasting. That's all that's the only page we're going to be broadcasting from. It's my new Facebook professional page. So go check that out. And we're excited to see you, and just so happy to be communicating with you guys. It's heaven for us.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here and joining in this dialogue on A Course in Miracles.
And once you get that Facebook, link put in once, of course,
That's right.
then you just barely start typing it the next time.
Exactly. That's right.
And
Love you.
subscribe.
And subscribe, follow, and love you guys so much. You guys are awesome, and appreciate you all.